Hello and welcome back to the Void Century podcast. We're here today to bring you chapter 973 of One Piece entitled The Kozuki Clan. So first thing first, right off the bat, we see a flashback to the Roger Pirates. Oden spending time with the kids. He's got Momo and Hiyori on him. And he's speaking to Momo directly. We see them descending from Sky Island. And he's telling Momo, you see these open skies, you see these boundless borders. Remember this. You're not going to see anything like this in Wano. And then we actually go to the next panel, and it's kind of funny because we see Oden asking Momo what kind of women he likes, even though he's only 3 years old.
Yeah, and Rayleigh interjects and he's like, it's too early to talk about this with your kid. What are you doing?
And then we go to another panel where it's Oden teaching Momo how to use a sword.
Yeah, and this time Shanks is like, Oden, come on, he's only 3. Like, you shouldn't be teaching your baby how to use a sword.
And then we see Oden back in Wano, and everybody's asking him about his adventures on Zou. And we see Oden complimenting the minks, and he tells the Scabbards and the rest of his retainers, when the time comes, seek out Zou. They'll be invaluable allies. And then we see Hiyori playing the shamisen. And she actually created a little song she called Moon Princess because she's the Moon Princess. And Oden, in typical Oden fashion, tells Hiyori to play the song at his funeral.
Yeah, and also, kind of more of a meta thing, we see that this is also the same instrument that Hiyori uses in the Kabuki theater telling of the Wano art.
I think it's pretty much clear here Oden knew he was going to die because he's setting himself up. I mean, we know he's gonna die, but it's like death flags in his flashback.
Yeah, and also he was being a father and trying to be inspirational to his children before he died. So next we follow the Scabbards fleeing the scene from Oden's death and going to Oden's castle, probably trying to meet up with Toki and all of that. So they're kind of like slicing enemies on the way, and before they slice enemies, we see Shinobu, and she tosses them some weapons. And they're like, thank you. And she's kind of asking them whether or not she can be a retainer for Lord Oden. And Kinemon's like, well, yeah, we all started the same way where we were just following him because we liked him and we just decided to become a retainer. So the choice to become a retainer is really on you. So if you consider yourself a retainer, then you are a retainer. So she's crying and she's saying, thank you, okay, yeah. And then next we see Neko, Mamushi, and Inuarashi fighting. And they're kind of bickering, and I really think that it's more so them projecting on each other because they're both upset and sad that Lord Oden has passed away, and they probably partially blame themselves, but they're projecting and blaming each other instead, that it's each other's fault, and perhaps maybe you're the spy, and kind of just really hitting them where it hurts to make each other kind of feel bad, but it's mostly them being upset that Lord Oden passed. And while they get bickered, one of the numbers catches them. Both of them are captured. And first off, I would just also want to point out that the shadow of the number, the face structure, it looks very, very similar to the skull that's at Onigashima. So possibly the numbers are the same race as presumably the Oni from Onigashima or Oars and Oars Jr.'s race. So next we see Kinemon telling Denjiro and Ashura Doji to just leave Inu and Neko to be captured, but we see them going off and fighting anyway.
And then we flash forward kind of to Oden Castle. The Beast Pirates surround the castle and light it on fire. The Beast Pirates enter into the castle, and we see Toki's like incapacitated, and we see Hiyori actually trying to like console Toki and wake her up. And then we actually see a scene where Kaido is choking Momo and holding him over a ledge. Momo in this moment proclaims that Oden is a great warrior and a great man, and that Momo one day will have to be shogun and carry the country on his back. Kaido basically responds by telling Momo that those aren't his dreams, those are the dreams of his father. And in this moment, Momo, beaten and bruised, calls out for Oden. And Kaido basically throws Momo back to his mother, turns into a dragon, and flies away while the castle is burning. And in this moment, we see Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo pop up and appear and, show themselves to Toki. Toki basically tells everyone to gather around her. We don't actually see what Toki tells them, but we can only assume that this is the moment where Toki sends everybody into the future.
So next we see Kawamatsu escaping with Hiyori. He dives out of the castle into the moat, and he's swimming along. It makes sense because he's a fisherman, so he has a pretty clean escape through the water with Hiyori. We also see Toki on a white horse fleeing Oden's castle, and it looks like she is going to some sort of platform to give a speech, and the townspeople are kind of commenting on how it's so dark tonight, more dark than normal, and they're kind of upset at themselves for not trusting in the Kozuki, so they kind of are bracing themselves and believe that it's divine punishment, that they deserve being punished for not believing in the Kozuki clans. Now is the beginning of the eternal night that never breaks.
And then we see Toki having a flashback of Oden in real time, not through a letter telling, Toki, when the time comes, if you want to see the dawn, just jump 20 years into the future. And Toki kind of like covers his mouth in like a how dare you kind of moment. And, she denies Oden dinner, and Oden, being Oden, was like, what? Was it something I said? So we see Toki on the execution platform, I believe, or it's some kind of platform overlooking Oden Castle as it's burning. She's speaking to the moon, and she basically states she traveled into the future for 800 years to find somebody, if not Oden. Basically stating that she's here, she's not going to jump into the future. This is her husband, this is somebody she's built a bond with. She basically states, you are the moon, unaware of the dawn, as the castle's burning. And then Toki makes her prophecy, which is, may your purpose be fulfilled and cast 9 shadows on the night woven of 20 years, and you shall know the brilliance of the dawn. And in this moment, we see a panel of a beast pirate cocking a pistol, and we see a scene of the moon with the onomatopoeia for doom, which looks like action mark. We are led to believe that Toki was shot without showing us.
Yeah, and you kind of see like it looked like her shaking from like a thud of being shot. So I'm pretty sure that Toki is killed by gunshot wounds. So next we see Orochi complaining. He's inside a bath, and he's complaining that the bath isn't warm enough. So he's like, can you heat this bath up more? And his attendant is like, it's already scalding hot. We can't possibly raise the temperature more without risking you getting hurt. We see Orochi inside the bath, and he's still shivering as if he's cold. And it's because he is scared that none of the 9 Scabbards have been captured yet, and until then, he probably won't rest easy. So next we see Ashura Doji. He's kind of already showing signs of not being able to endure the 20 years because he's saying that, man, Lady Toki told us to wait 20 years. Are any of my friends, any of my brethren still alive? Like, can I trust that they were sent to the future? That type of thing. So he's already starting to show glimmers of losing hope. We also see how do you say his name?
Kawamatsu.
We also see Kawamatsu dancing in front of Hiyori, and Hiyori is just recently orphaned. Both her parents died, so she's crying and sad. So it's really Kawamatsu trying to cheer her up and make her not so sad.
And then finally, we see the Denjiro reveal. We see Denjiro, and we just see him crying, and he just looks terribly angry. And then we get a few panels in which it goes from summer to winter, and we see that his hair has gone all white and his face has been permanently contorted into that scowling face. And then we actually see scenes from the flower capital where Kiyoshiro is walking up to the flower capital, and it looks like he beat a couple guys up and I guess got the attention from a couple other people, and he's dressed all in rags. So these people who saw him beat up these other people are like, whoa, you're really strong. What's your name? And I guess our theory is right, because Denjiro reveals that he now wants to be called Kiyoshiro the Mad. So then we get a scene of Kiyoshiro actually pledging his allegiance to Orochi. Orochi asks him for protection, and he says, I can pay you in whatever you want, money, men, women. And we just get a scene of Denjiro's eyes, and they're just ice cold. The way Oda draws it, you could tell he's just completely filled with absolute rage. Ashura Doji and Kinemon, it's stated, can't even recognize Denjiro in his current form. The townspeople proclaim Denjiro Kiyoshiro to be the successor of Hirogoro and now the leader of all the Yakuza in Wano. And people comment on his charisma and how Kiyoshiro always looks so sleepy. And then we get a scene and another theory, right, in which it's confirmed that Kiyoshiro Denjiro is in fact the witching hour boy, and we see him with a typical robber mask over his face, just running around Wano and just stealing everything he can.
Yeah, and that kind of also explains why he's sleepy all the time, because at night he's kind of a vigilante and stealing all this stuff. So next we see Kawamatsu, and he's lost Hiyori, and he's worried. He's like, where is she? Where is she? And it turns out that she was found on the streets by some women, and these women bring Hiyori to the Yakuza, to where Denjiro is, or Kiyoshiro is. So he sees her and he recognizes her immediately. He has a private audience with Hiyori, and he is doing a prostrated full bow to her in full respect, saying that he is, in fact, Denjiro, and he was grateful to hear that Kawamatsu took care of her, and that now he will be the one who will take care of her and make sure that she's all right. And he's crying. He's so happy to see her safe and sound. And he explains to her that his anger and being so upset about the death of Lord Oden and Toki, that it permanently disfigured his face and changed the color of his hair, and he wants her to never tell anyone else, not even other Scabbards, of his identity. He wants to remain secret to everyone, and from now on he wants her to be known as Komurasaki, and she's going to be under his protection. We kind of see Hiyori go through her ages, so she goes from a young child, then we see her again and she is playing the shamisen, and she's kind of like, teenage years, and then we see her in present day. So I think that this is officially the end of the flashback, because finally we see someone in the present day again.
Yeah, so I thought it was great, but what are your general thoughts and feelings on the chapter? What did you think? I felt a lot on this one. This one got me pretty upset a couple times. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tragic chapter. We were very sad to see Lady Toki die, but she died very inspirationally in front of the people to help make them feel more understanding of the prophecy, to kind of keep their will and hope alive. It was nice to see the Denjiro Kyoshiro reveal. Here at Void Century Podcast, we're going to be happy when we are correct with our predictions, so I'm very happy. I'm going to kind of pat ourselves on the back a little, because that was a cool one to get right.
I'll pat you on the back and yet shamelessly ignore all the theories that we get wrong in chasing these theories that we get right.
We're never wrong. Just kidding.
So there's been a lot of debate in the community as to whether or not people think Toki dies. I think it's pretty much confirmed in this chapter that Toki dies. Even though we don't see a gravestone for her proper, it's pretty much confirmed she's dead. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think she's dead. I mean, and we were discussing this earlier. There's no way that if she isn't dead, like if she went to the future, she would have to be in the future and die in the future, because she can only jump in time forwards. She can't jump backwards in time. So I think that we just saw her get executed with a gun, and I think that she is dead. I don't think unless like in her dying breath, she jumped to the future, which I guess is feasible, that like she might have, like while she was dying, jumped into the future. That's something that I think is possible, but again, I don't know. I think that it's more likely she's just dead and she just died in that time period.
Yeah, I don't think Toki's gonna jump into the future wounded, one, when it takes up a lot of stamina, and two, she's gonna jump in the future and appear to like her retainers and Momo in a best possible scenario and then just say a couple words and die. I don't think it works out like that. Even though Toki's destiny in her eyes is that she wants to die with Oden. Like, she wants to be with her beloved. Like, it doesn't make any sense for Toki to jump to the future, get better, and then, like, live out while, like, the Dawn's doing its thing. I don't see that happening. And even then, I know that we speculated last podcast, or maybe a couple before that we thought that it was a possibility that Oden and Toki left a poneglyph for the kids. But we see here that at least Oden had a little bit more time to interact with the kids and at least teach them about, like, their purpose in life, their mission, what they need to do, like, what their family name means and what's expected of them. So I don't necessarily know if the poneglyph would be necessary.
I mean, even when we first meet Momo, he is a very determined little kid. He was very driven. Even in the Punk Hazard arc, we could tell that he was a very driven individual, especially considering his young age. He seemed to have a huge burden on his shoulder that he was carrying, and now we can see how he got that way. It was because of those years of traveling with his father, with Roger's Pirates, and just being groomed for it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Momo, he carries a lot around on his shoulders. As we've discussed, he definitely has this hump that he needs to get over, and he's going to get stronger. It's just his development as a character. Exactly what moment in the story do you think what do you think his main obstacle is going to be? Like, what do you think the physical representation that he has to overcome or display? What feat does he have to display in order to become the man that he's supposed to be before he takes over Wano?
I think it's going to be him facing Kaido again, because we see here him being choked by Kaido and barely being able to stand up to him. And I think that the next time will be him facing Kaido in more of a position of power. And, you know, maybe he'll be with Otoko and she's going to help control Kaido or something. But I think it's just him standing up against Kaido that will be his moment of, like, where he knows that he's the leader, the rightful leader, and kind of becomes that embodied.
So, one thing, I do think Otama needs to play significance in the arc. But this is how I'm feeling.
I said Otoko. I meant Otama, yeah.
So I don't necessarily know how I feel about our speculation a couple of weeks ago that, you know, Kaido could be overcome by Otama and be like a subservient dragon, because this is how I look at it. Right now, the townsfolk, they view Kaido as a literal representation of a god. Kaido's a god. He's a divine being. He's a dragon,
so
right?
He's kind of like how Skypiea saw Enel.
Most definitely. But here's the thing. Kaido is going to be replaced by another dragon, a Kozuki dragon. So I think it would be like fitting poetic justice. I don't think they need two dragons, but it's literally like a battle of the gods, kind of, if you will.
Oh, true. Yeah, Momo does have a new dragon fruit, and it may not be as strong and powerful, but he's still young. We don't know how powerful it can get.
I mean, even so, we've seen in the One Piece story, it doesn't necessarily only matter what kind of fruit you have, but also how you utilize it. So even though Kaido is the strongest quote-unquote beast in the world, he's the king of the beasts, he might not even be using his devil fruit to its full potential. Like, we've still never seen him in hybrid form, and everybody knows it's the strongest zone form.
True. So this chapter, the MVP 100% is Denjiro. And since you predicted the whole witching hour boy thing, I want you to talk about how Denjiro's sacrifice and how he's able to kind of overcome this 20-year time gap.
So think about it. Okay, so Denjiro was like, quote unquote, the second Scabbard to join, but when we see Denjiro first revealed, we see Denjiro's already stoked over Oden. He's like, yo, Oden, I've waited to meet you like forever, dude. I'm your biggest fan. He's going all Bartolomeo over Oden. Right?
True.
And he's always the one who's in charge of the finances for the Curry region. He's always the one that's trying to get everybody to like get their knowledge up and to like level up. Like Denjiro behind the scenes is like the OG. Like, he's the manager of the group. He's the leader. He's pretty much like, you know, Luffy's the captain, but Nami runs shit. Denjiro, he's not the captain of the Scabbards, but he's the one that runs everything. He's the logistical genius that allows the operation to function. So, in saying that, Denjiro being all stoked over Oden, Oden dies, okay? Denjiro, he's so distraught, it literally disfigures his face. So he can only wear a permanent scowl. And on top of that, he pledges allegiance for 20 years to the guy that killed his master and his family in cold blood. Denjiro has to be right by Orochi's side and protect this sniveling little worm that Orochi is. So a lot of people, Kinemon was set up in the story to be MVP and #1 Scabbard, but Kinemon didn't make half, not even a percentage of the sacrifice that Denjiro has made.
Yeah, I think that it's fair to say that all of the Scabbards left in the past made a larger sacrifice than the ones that got sent to the future. Kinemon, he did sacrifice something that was very precious to him, which was his wife, because he lost 20 years with her. Like, that's sad, right? Like, I know that like she looks young, she looks great for her age, but Osuru is now 20 years older than she used to be, so that's 20 years being with her that he's missing. And also, Kinemon is the one who they entrusted to take care of Momo. And that's very important. So it's not that Kinemon isn't well regarded within the Scabbards. He's probably #2 after Denjiro, I'd say.
Totally, but if we're really ranking sacrifices of the Scabbards here, who's sacrificed more than Denjiro? Kawamatsu?
Oh, I'm not saying...
No, I'm just saying. Yeah. But let's just bring it into perspective here. Okay, definitely the 3 Scabbards that stayed, maybe even Shinobu included, sacrificed way more than the Scabbards were sent to the future. And it's shown, and that's why Kinemon Ashura Doji had that squabble where Ashura Doji's like, you expect to come back here and everybody's going to root for you and rally for you. No, we've been here for 20 years. Where have you been? You don't understand what we've been living through.
Actually, now I'm thinking about it, and Neko and Inu probably sacrificed the least after the time skip, because they've just been bickering and getting captured, and they're like, I feel like they didn't really sacrifice much other than they're just too upset to even do anything. Like, they're kind of stuck in a funk because they're just too sad about Oden's death that they're now too busy bickering with each other than to actually focus on helping bring Wano back. It took Luffy coming and Momo returning from the future for them to get their gears back in shape and kind of even start beginning to turn around and become the Scabbards again.
I agree with you, but that's not 100% fair, because Neko and Inu lost limbs for the rebellion. There was nobody else that was physically disfigured other than Denjiro's face for the rebellion. So maybe that's the whole tie-in with Jack, okay? Neko and Inu needed to lose limbs because that was the only way to physically show their sacrifice. Because all the Scabbards have sacrificed something. But interesting point is, we don't see what happens to Neko and Inu, okay? So we don't know if they had to escape from the Beast Pirates, or we don't know if Ashura Doji and Denjiro were successful in freeing them from that numbers member. The only thing we know is that they make it back to Zou somehow, and then they become the leaders of Zou. But, Zou and Wano, they're still disconnected. So they don't have to deal with half of the bull crap that happens on the day-to-day to the Scabbards that happened to the other guys. So I wouldn't really consider Neko and Inu in that whole, gamut of characters that were left behind, the Scabbards that were left behind, because they were doing their own thing on Zou. So if you want to talk about the 3 Scabbards that were, left behind, Kawamatsu, he protected Hiyori for years. He gathered arms for the rebellion for years. Hiyori was captured, he was captured, and he went to jail for years eating rotten fish.
Poisoned rotten fish, right?
Yeah, but a fish man's stomach can handle anything, dude.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that they should count as ones left behind because they were literally left behind, and I mean, their sacrifice probably wasn't as great as the others, but they should be counted because they're a scabbard and they were left behind.
Oh, most
Um,
definitely. I was just sorry. I was just trying to clarify, based on the
it's
point
okay.
I made previously.
Yeah. I get you. So next is we know about that Benimaru Fox guy who's hoarding swords. Do we know whether or not maybe he's working with Denjiro slash Kyoshiro to kind of like does Denjiro have kind of control over that operation or not?
No, I don't think so. I think the only way it would come under Denjiro's fold. Oh, actually, yeah, cuz I think Kyoshiro actually reported to Orochi the intel of where Hiyori was hiding and the ammo cat, or excuse me, not the ammo cache, the arms cache, basically where Hiyori was, because as we see, that's where Zoro is. And that's where we left off in present day.
Oh, okay.
So if Kyoshiro, he knows, it's obvious that probably his men are the ones that are going to be dispatched. So it could be that he's had previous dealings with Benimaru. But I also don't see Kyoshiro having a lot of chance to get out of the flower capital. Even as the witching hour boy, he's still around the capital at night. Orochi probably keeps him as close as he possibly can, and Orochi's not the kind of guy that's gonna, go around for publicity tours and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. So going back to Benimaru, we might possibly have some weapon upgrades for the Scabbards that jump to the future. So we know that Kinemon and Raizo and the others, they don't have their weapons yet, but we have conveniently this Fox guy who's been hoarding weapons, so there's a good chance that he might have been able to get some of the Scabbard's weapons, and now that they have their own weapons, they might have kind of a power up in fighting prowess.
They could also get it from Denjiro too, because remember, Denjiro as Kyoshiro now controls the Yakuza. So the whole black
Yeah.
market is now totally under him. So, I mean, swords and weapons probably go through him all the time.
And
So,
Devil Fruit.
yeah, most definitely. So he would totally recognize his comrades' swords, and he would totally hoard them for the day that they return and the prophecy is fulfilled.
Yeah, and also just going back to the devil fruit thing, maybe he has control over where the devil fruits went. So maybe he knows what happened to the Barabara no Mi and the Mane Mane no Mi. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
But if we want to make that point too, so Kyoshiro as a confidant of Orochi might also be involved with the dealings of the Beast Pirates and their logistics for the black market weapons and whatnot, including the Smile Fruits and Caesar's gas weapon. So Denjiro being Kyoshiro in such an important placement right now in the grand scheme of things in the enemy's camp, he could literally be tied into all the logistics that supplied Kaido and Orochi's armies. So supplies are just as important as weapons. He could put the kibosh on it, and that would, allow... We totally know that Kyoshiro could go ahead and be instrumental in the logistics for both the Kaido and Beast Pirate / Orochi operations. So if he's in control of all the logistics, it's possible that he could also stop the flow of weapons and supplies at any time and seriously hinder both of those factions. So he's really in an important place right now. But, I mean, we could talk about Denjiro all day right now, but even Ashura Doji made sacrifices for the Scabbards. He was the one trying to rouse a whole bunch of men and the bandit crew. He was also governing the whole Kibi region after
Yeah, I think it's
Oden's
pretty
death.
cool. I think it's pretty cool that he went back to Kibi region. I mean, it only makes sense, but it's just cool that he went back after the knowledge, after learning how to govern from Oden, and now he's the new leader there, and they're more of a peaceful group now, right? They're not. Are they more bandity or are they more peaceful now?
I mean, they're still a bandit group, but they've got to be more peaceful now. People just don't have the energy to try to kill each other constantly.
Yeah, and everything, like, all their water's poison. Like, it's hard to just even get water there. Like, living in Wano is just hell.
No, living in the Kibi region especially is hell, but in the flower capital it's pretty nice.
Yeah, for certain areas. I mean, anywhere where Orochi is, it's going to be easier, right? Because that's where he governs and he wants to, yeah.
So going back to Denjiro for 1 second, I know we said that we're gonna stop talking about Denjiro, but one of the things that I wanted to point out is Denjiro is now the reincarnation of Hirogoro. Hirogoro was the top Yakuza boss, meaning all the Yakuza bosses serve Kyoshiro, Denjiro now. So, I heard a lot of people grumbling when we were in the whole prison scene and we got the introductions of all the Yakuza bosses and everybody's like, oh, why do we have to worry about these guys? Because these people were literally handpicked by a member of the Scabbards. So it's obvious that they would be sympathizers with the Kozukis and the rebellion itself.
Do you think that there's going to be any people that Kyoshiro kind of recruited to be on his side, that he like found some people who they would be loyal, and maybe he's trying to recruit them to be like, he might have some people recruited or something to help with the cause? Do you think that that's possible?
Yeah, that's what I was just touching on. So that's like the whole point. So these people they're thugs, okay? It's a gang. They don't follow Orochi as much as they follow Kyoshiro. It's an honor thing. Follow your boss. Your boss will always look out for you. So they have more. It's just the fact that Kyoshiro, bends the knee to Orochi. It's not that they work for Orochi and just report to Kyoshiro. So Kyoshiro at this whole time has been gathering allies and sympathizers and forces. He's been stealing money to finance the rebellion. So the Yakuza organization right now as a whole they're sympathizers with the rebellion and the Kozukis because Kyoshiro has made it that way. And Denjiro, being the ultimate criminal mastermind that he is, he's financing the whole rebellion right under Orochi's nose and making it as inconspicuous as possible because at heart he's just a con man.
And a great con man that he is. Denjiro's definitely MVP Scabbard right now.
Oh, totally. And you want to hear who the LVP Scabbard is?
I'm gonna wager you're gonna say Kiku?
Oh, well, I just thought it was funny. And I made a point to point this out when we were doing the chapter breakdown, is that we see Raizo, Kinemon, and Kanjuro appear before Toki and get blasted into the future. But Kiku was supposed to be there too. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want to draw an extra person, but this is Oda we're talking about, so I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's Oda. Dude works 18 hours a day. I'm pretty sure he knows how to block out his panels by now. So I just thought it was interesting. Okay, so to tie it all in here, we went back and we looked at the gravestones in front of Oden Castle. So we have Momonosuke, we have Oden, we have Raizo, we have Kanjuro, and we have Kinemon, and then you see Kozuki, and you can't really see who it is too well, but now it's pretty much confirmed that it's Toki. And then you see Retainer, and then you can't see it too well. So ultimately, it's the list of the people who died, i.e. Toki, i.e. Oden, and then the party that was sent to the future. So Kanjuro, Raizo, Kinemon, Momonosuke, and then this untitled member who was sent into the future, which is Kiku. But we see in the flashback that, Kiku didn't appear before Toki before they were sent into the future. So what happened?
I don't know, but I'm just going to say most likely what happened was they didn't draw her in there, but she was sent in the future. Until it's otherwise said, that's what we should assume.
Yeah, most definitely. I just wanted to make the point that, she wasn't there. And Oden, who's so meticulous with everything, and who's the master of foreshadowing, just found it interesting. And I just wanted to point it out, to be honest.
I also kind of want to go back and talk about the numbers. And how do you feel about the numbers being like a Oni race? And also maybe Kaido might be the same race?
Yeah, it's possible. We see that Japanese legends, at least in the form of Tenguyama and the lion dog and the giant baboon, those are yokai. So those are like Japanese, Oni and demons. So we've seen that at least in some form they do exist. I think it was stated that Ors and Ors Jr. were not from Wano, but maybe that's the only way they can kind of like explain these people, these races. But we don't necessarily know that the numbers themselves come from Wano. All we know is that they're part of the Beast Pirates crew. It also could be that like perhaps maybe Oni used to terrorize the lands of Wano, or maybe an Oni landed on Wano and they were slayed by a similar Ryuma type figure.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we know that Ryuma is the most powerful swordsman in all of One Piece ever.
But even so, the progenitor of the Kozukis could be the one that sliced down this Oni in the past. And maybe that's why the Kozukis became shogun. Because we know that Ryuma is a Shimosuke, but it's obvious that he had no want to govern. Like, he just wanted to seek the strongest swordsman. He didn't want to start a kingdom.
Right.
So again, how do you think Inuyarashi and Nekomamushi got back to Zou?
Well, we did see that Ashura Doji and who's the other one?
Denjiro.
Yeah, Ashura Doji and Denjiro went to help them. So it's possible that they were rescued from the numbers before, like after getting caught, they were just, rescued. We don't know exactly what happened, but either way, all we know is that they escaped and they probably, maybe Denjiro, because, well, I don't know. They had to have escaped somehow though, and we do know that Wano is very difficult to get on and off of because the ports are always closed. So even if they did escape, it's really hard for them to flee the country. So they might have been smuggled. Maybe Denjiro, as Kyoshiro, had some type of way to help them escape without them knowing. Yeah, that's what I think.
And okay, so now that we've seen Denjiro with his glasses off and we see like his full face, I think it's pretty much confirmed that he's related to Zoro's master. I mean, they look so freaking similar. Maybe that's how the fruits are smuggled out of the East Blue. The Yakuza would have access to the ports in the outside world. Maybe he sent his brother a care package and that's how they ended up in the East.
Yeah, or I mean, we don't see the fruits with his brother, so they could have been sent anywhere. Like, it doesn't necessarily even have to be with him. It could just be sent anywhere.
Totally, but Denjiro also being a member of Wano and never making it off the island, he would have absolutely no idea where to send it because he's got no idea what the outside world is like.
Yeah, but I mean, look at who has the fruits. We have Bartholomew, who's an ally, but then we also have Bon Clay, who started off as a bad guy. So he was kind of a thug. So it didn't necessarily go into good hands. It went to two pirates, one of whom was at least at the time was like evil or a bad guy.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, right, we're starting like this whole Wano community out on the East Blue, right? And so we took a long journey to get there, and we want to start like our own community, but we kind of don't have like any money to like finance anything. But, I got a brother who kind of like, I don't know, he's like a gangster or something, and he's got like these really expensive items that we could sell to go ahead and finance this whole community out here. It just so happens that they bestow like magical freaking powers on people.
Yeah, I see where you're getting at. Yeah, but is that community really like Wano sympathizer? Because we know that Oden's dream is to open the ports of Wano. It doesn't say move the people of Wano to a different location.
No, they're not moving the people of Wano, but literally the name of the city that Zoro grew up in is Shimosuke. Well, not the city he grew up in, but that's where the dojo's located that he trained at. The dojo of the same name, Shimosuke, which just so happens to be one of the clans that are retainers of the Kozukis that serve the Kozukis.
Oh, I see.
So they're obviously sympathizers, including Benimaru and Yasue and Benimaru's master. They were all Shimos, including Ryuma himself, possibly even Zoro. I mean, it's just food for thought, right? We don't know anything definitively until it's written in the story. But, like, you would need money to start, like, this colony, If Wano got destroyed, at least, like, the teachings of Wano could kind of, like, live on behind, like, Shimosuke Village and the samurai it produces.
Yeah, I like that.
And, I mean, since Kuina died, Zoro's, like, the successor. And maybe Zoro's master wasn't such like a bad guy, told Kuina that she was a female so she couldn't be a great swordsman. Maybe that's like the only thing he ever knew because he was like from Wano and women were pretty much forbidden to be swordsmen. Kiku, even though she dresses as a woman and wants people to refer to her as a female, she's still a man, because that's just the culture of Wano. They don't know anything about women being swords people. The only thing a woman can do in terms of battle prowess is like a kunoichi, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and like because she was born male, she doesn't really have the shortcomings that a woman would have anyway, so it doesn't even go against what Zoro's master said. So that's kind of something to consider as well.
Yeah, and he was taught in the old ways. Like, that's the only thing he ever knows.
Right.
So Zoro really is like the successor of kind of Denjiro and Oden in a way. I guess if, Zoro, we don't even know if Zoro has ties to Wano outside of he trained in like a Wano sword style under a Wano sword master.
Dude, I want to see him fight Kyoshiro. I want to see Zoro fight Kyoshiro. I think that it's going to happen again because they had that clash and nobody else knows that Kyoshiro is actually a good guy yet. And Zoro was definitely excited when he did that clash. He was just like, ooh, this guy's worthy of fighting. Like, I want to fight him. And I think that Denjiro has to be the strongest swordsman out of the Scabbards.
You know what I find really interesting though? I find it really interesting that Zoro's like this unbridled aggression and like fury, and yet Denjiro is like so sleepy and cool and collected. I definitely think it would be like a cool matchup.
He's sleepy because he's the witching hour boy and he doesn't sleep. That's why he's sleepy. I don't.
Death flags for Denjiro. He can sleep when he's dead.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I would definitely like to see that clash again. And one of the things I'm really interested in seeing too is at the end of it all, I just want to see Zoro pay respects to Ryuma. And maybe we could learn that, Zoro has some relation to him or something outside of the fact that they look similar. But, Oda, he's allowed to reuse character designs from before he started One Piece, okay? Shanks was a bad guy in Monsters, except he had a big mustache.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's fitting for Ryuma to appear once again, like in a gravestone or something. Like I know that his body was taken or whatever, but like I think that it's fitting to see some type of Ryuma reference again. I think I'm expecting it, honestly.
Ooh, okay. So, interesting theory here. What if Ryuma's legacy is marked on a poneglyph? And what if we kind of get a flashback to the reading of the poneglyph to like Ryuma's life and maybe the formation of the Kozukis, the defeat of the dragon? Because keep in mind, we saw Ryuma as like a zombie corpse, okay, with Brook's shadow inside of it. So, Ryuma, even though being a great swordsman, he was still using Brook's techniques. Like, at the end of the day, we still have no idea what Ryuma fought like. Maybe it's one of those things, kind of like a voice of all things, where you might not be able to read the poneglyph, but you can kind of feel the feelings from the poneglyph. So what if, Zoro's sitting there, and even though, Ryuma's dead and gone and his corpse has been stolen, what if this legacy that was left behind, he can still feel like the energy emanating off of it, and we have a flashback kind of like Ryuma doing his thing in his own day, and kind of almost like when Roger is like, wow, Joy Boy, I wish I could have met you and seen what you were like. It's kind of very similar to Zoro, except Zoro kind of met Ryuma in a way, but he'll never have the chance to fight him at like his full potential.
When was Ryuma alive? Was he alive during the Void Century, before the Void Century, or after?
I believe he was alive during the Void Century. Or maybe before, because we know Toki's from the Void Century, which is like 820 years from present.
Yeah, because either way, his clan would be like a retainer of the Kozuki clan.
Yeah, most definitely. He was still a Shimosuke, and the Shimosukis themselves are retainers of the Kozukis.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up all of our talking points for the day.
Yeah, most definitely. I think we talked a lot about the whole breakdown of the chapter. We made some interesting points, and I'm just so happy we finally got to see Denjiro, but I still feel so bad for him.
Yeah, Denjiro reveal hype.
Boss, MVP of the arc, most definitely. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Void Century podcast, and thanks for sailing with us.
Yeah, bye guys.
Bye.